is Russ. Yeah, I'm back out on the road again. Actually, this is my second time out on the road today. Yeah, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Yeah, these videos are popping out like crazy. Well, that's because I'm going out more often now. So anyway, I decided to make a video today about choosing an e-bike as your first e-bike. How's that? Yeah, I figured, I've gone through quite a few e-bikes now in my time with e-bikes. How many have I gone through? At least 30? Maybe more? About 30, I would say. So I've learned a thing or two about e-bikes. And on occasion, I do get friends who ask me about e-bikes, whether actually they're looking for one or not, or just, in general questions about e-bikes. So I figured this might be a good opportunity just to kind of ride around the neighborhoods and talk about what to look for if you're a first-time buyer looking for an e-bike. Okay? Now, it may not fit everybody. I'll say that right now. Maybe you're looking for a very inexpensive e-bike. What I'm going to say might not actually fit that. However, stay with me and let me see if I can convince you to spend a little bit more and get something a little bit better. Okay? Now, people have said to me in the past, Russ, all you ever get are relatively expensive e-bikes. Yeah, I don't think they're all that expensive compared to what could be out there. I mean, there are bikes that are in the thousands of dollars. Okay, I have a couple, but most of them I would say are $2,000 and under. Okay, so what do we get in that range, and why should I spend this kind of money? Now, you don't have to spend $2,000. The bike I'm on right now is the Engwe E26. How much is this bike? I don't know. What is it? $11.99? I'm thinking something like that. Check Engwe's site. Find out what the sale price is. Sale prices always change, right? But I think it's roughly around there. $1,100, $1,200, probably around $1,200. But we'll talk about some of the things you can get and why it might be worth spending a couple $100 more. Okay, now, first off, let me say this. The E26 tends to be one of my more favorite bikes, which is kind of strange considering it's probably the cheapest bike I have. But it is one of my more favorite bikes, and the reason is because it's cheaper than the rest of them. But it performs, I would say, equally as well. Yeah. But it is a big bike. So let's talk about the things you should look for when you're thinking about buying a bike. First off, I think you need to look at, your own physical situation. How big are you? Are you a tall guy? Are you a short guy? Are you an overweight guy like me? Are you a fairly well-built guy? How big of a bike can you handle, really? Now, the E26 is pretty big. I'm going to tell you right now, it is pretty big. Most people, when they first look at it, they go, wow, that thing is huge. They're usually not used to seeing something this large. Yeah, I mean, if they come from regular non-e-bike things, they're not going to be used to something this large. And they'll usually say, that thing is humongous. Even those who have e-bikes look at something like this and go, that thing is huge. Yeah, I would say it's pretty big. I mean, this is a step-over bike. We'll talk about these things too. And so, to clear the step-over bike, some people call these boys' bikes, right? Boys' bikes, girls' bikes, men's bikes, women's bikes. Yeah, it's got a bar up on top here. Let me go down. You see that bar there? That top bar, you've got to clear it. If you don't clear it and you hop off the saddle being the seat, if you hop off the saddle, you're going to hit in areas you don't want to be hit, especially if you're a guy, all right? So you either have to angle the bike a little bit to clear it every time you get off, or find a bike that's not quite as tall with that. Now, if you get something called a step-through, which some people call women's bikes, then that's not as much of a concern because that top tube isn't there. Now, a lot of times guys don't want this because they say, well, that's a girl's bike. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Not anymore. You're going to find a lot of people, including myself, ride step-through bikes. I actually kind of prefer to step-through bikes now. I didn't when I first got my first e-bike. I wanted the boys' bike. But I've kind of learned since then that let this guy go first because he's trying to turn. Go ahead and turn. These guys kind of take their time turning. Yeah, well, I can't teeter-totter back and forth and stay vertical if they go too slow. So, yeah, I wanted the step-over bike because that's what I'm used to. That's what I've always had. Well, you don't really need it anymore, and quite frankly, with my age now and, not the strongest leg and knee and everything, the step-through bike makes a lot more sense. And it's not just for guys my age or with certain disabilities and the like. It's pretty much for everybody now. I think the e-bike companies are noticing more people are buying step-through bikes than step-over bikes. Yeah, it's more popular. So don't let that stop you from buying a step-through bike. The benefit of the step-through bike is obviously you don't have to swing your leg over the top of the seat, to get over the top tube. Just step right through. Yeah. Now there's step-throughs and then there's step-throughs. Okay. Take a look at the step-through height. Some of these step-through heights are kind of tall, and then they have other ones that they call mid-step bikes. Right, mid-step bikes are kind of in between a step-over bike and a step-through bike. So they got another bar there, but it's not quite high enough to call it a step-over, not quite low enough to call it a step-through. In my mind, that's still a step-over bike, because if you have to lift your leg that high to get over that thing, you're going to be swinging your leg over the top of the saddle. We already know it. So if you want to step through, make sure it's a step through, okay? What is the benefits and disadvantages of them? Well, the benefit of a step over bike is rigidity. You got an extra tube there. It's going to make the frame more rigid, okay? Why is that important? Well, if you're going to hop curbs and you're going to do all sorts of fancy things on trails and everything like that, you might want that step over bike. But if you're like me and you're just like kind of riding trails here, or you're riding the streets, and it doesn't really matter. You're not going to stress that frame out enough to make it worth having the hassles of having to swing your leg over the top of that thing. So a step-through bike would be perfectly fine. In fact, these bikes are built so well now. I mean, they're so heavy duty. I mean, if you look at any e-bike, except for some that are specifically kind of like the old non-electric bikes, but they have a motor in there anyway. Most of these e-bikes are built really solidly. I mean, if you look at them, the tubes are huge and everything. You're not going to have a problem with the rigidity issue. Only when you're going through, if you're hopping curbs and bouncing around and going through some heavy-duty trails, like mountain bike type trails and stuff like that, then you're going to have an issue. Then maybe the step-over bike would make more sense, okay? All right, so that's frame type. What else should you look at? Let's talk motor type, okay? Now, I know a lot of you guys have already know all this stuff if you've been watching Russ's Ride for a while. Just bear with me. There's a lot of new guys, a lot of new people looking for bikes. This is kind of geared for them, but it doesn't hurt for you guys to listen to all this stuff too. And then throw in the comments too, some things that I may have missed or didn't cover well enough. If you think something's important, put it in the comments. Help these other guys out, right? We'll get more people on e-bikes. All right, let's talk about motor types. All right, now there's hub motors, and then there's mid-drive motors. See, this is the memory. My memory keeps going on me. Mid-drive motors have the motor right where the pedals are, in that area, the crank area, right? Hub motors, the motor is in the back wheel, all right? So what's the difference? Well, advocates of mid-drives will tell you, well, the mid-drive is far better because you've got more torque You can go up hills a lot easier. True. It is true. But most people are gonna probably want the hub motor. And here's why. The mid-drive motor requires you to shift. Now, all this whole time, you kind of maybe noticed that I haven't even really been pedaling. I've just been using the throttle. We'll talk about throttles and stuff later here. I haven't even hit any of the gears. I got 7 gears here. I haven't even touched that. But if you're one that likes to pedal, okay, then yeah, the mid-drive might be a nice choice. But I tell you, the mid-drive is a learning curve. I'm still learning it, and I've been riding e-bikes for 3 years now. I got a mid-drive bike last year. That's my Himiway Rambler Premium, and I'm still learning it. I'm still grinding gears. You have to shift, is my point. All right, let's stop here for a second. If you have a mid-drive bike, you have to shift. If you're going slow and you're pedaling, you have to shift, right? If you're going faster, your feet are moving too quick, you're gonna have to move up on the gears, you're gonna have to shift, okay? And the shifting is different than this kind of shifting. So on a mid-drive bike, here's how you shift it. You shift the gear, okay, whether it's a trigger shifter or here this is just like the Shimano SIS shifter up here. You shift it, and then the momentum of the pedals themselves and the like will automatically move the chain to the next gear. Okay, if you pedal down while you're shifting, you're gonna be stripping the gears out because it'll start ripping into your chain. You'll hear it clunking and everything. So it's different now on a rear hub motor shifting. You could shift it like you normally shift any other bike with a shifter, you know, a non-electric bike. You could be pedaling and shifting at the same time, no problem. But you can't do that with a mid-drive bike. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to this type of mechanism. I learned too that a lot of my viewers have told me that because they saw me having to do this and they saw what really mid-drives entail, they're not going to want a mid-drive bike, okay? So it depends on the person. But again, if you're out for exercise and you want to shift, I mean, think of it like this. The mid-drive bike is kind of like a manual transmission car. You got to shift, right? Or an automatic transmission car, think of that as your hub motor, where you don't have to worry so much of how to shift, okay? I mean, you still got to shift if you want to go through the gears, but you don't have that hard learning curve. All right. Mid-drive motorbikes cost more money. Hub motorbikes don't. They cost less. All right. Something to think about for a first buyer. Okay. Now there's probably other things we can talk about too. All right, lady, go ahead and go. The thing is, when people see bikes, they freak out. They don't know what to do. So you notice I kept moving forward a little bit. That's because if I don't, I'm gonna fall. Because if I totally stop, I can't balance the bike on a dead stop. I have to keep moving a little bit, otherwise I'm gonna tip over, or I'm gonna have to hop off the bike. And hopping off the bike is kind of a hassle. So, all right. What else should we talk about here? What else is a thing to consider? Okay. Some of the bikes have front fork suspensions. This bike has a front fork suspension. What does that mean? That means that every time you hit a bump, the front fork kind of compresses and goes up and down. There's a little spring there. Some of them are air forks, but not in entry-level bikes. They're usually spring-loaded. So what does that do? It takes up the impact when you hit like a pothole or something, right? Other bikes don't have front fork suspensions, and it's going to be rigid. So when you hit that pothole, you're going to know it because it's, you're going to feel the impact of everything. Some bikes have rear suspensions where the back of the bike also has a suspension point. Okay, those are going to cost a little bit more money. This one has a seat post suspension, this Engwe E26, but it's kind of an inexpensive suspension. I mean, I feel it. I can bounce up and down here, but it's not as good as like the Suntour seat post. Suntour seat post might cost you between, I don't know what they are, $100 to $125 or something like that. The one that I'm sitting on comes with this bike, but this type of seat post thing would be between $20 and $30, something like that. So it's not that expensive, and it's not as good. Yeah, and based on my weight, I can feel it because my heavy weight kind of pushes it up and down. Sometimes it compresses so much that I have to get up a little bit, let it get some air in there again to give me some height. Otherwise, I'm compressing it too much, and I have no way of adjusting it either. So, better suspension seat posts are better, and worth the extra money. Most bikes have a solid seat post. Now let's talk about seat posts. Some seat posts have a very long seat post. Others have a very short seat post. Now if you're a tall guy, you're gonna want a taller seat post, because if you're a shorter person, it probably doesn't matter so much. You'd probably be okay. But if you're a tall guy, you want to make sure that seat post is tall enough. Now seat posts have different diameters. Some of the suspension seat posts will not fit on some of the openings. Okay, it's something to be aware of. So you have to kind of, if you're thinking you want a suspension seat post down the road, take a look at the sizing of the opening of the seat post area, and see if that suspension seat post that you're looking at will fit that. Some of them will not. Some of them use shims. If the suspension seat post is too small and the opening is too large, they have shims that can be used to fit it. But if your seat post is too fat and that opening is too thin, you can't use the seat post. It just won't fit in there. Okay, something to think about. Let's talk brakes. There's hydraulic brakes and there's mechanical disc brakes. Mechanical disc brakes are your standard brakes that use a cable. You pull on the handlebars brake lever, the cable tightens up, right, and tightens up, and then you get braking. Hydraulic brakes has a oil-filled line. So when you pull on the brake handle, you're pushing oil essentially, and that's what causes it to brake. In general, the hydraulic brakes are better because there's less maintenance in general, unless you get air inside the line, and then you've got to bleed, what they call bleed the line, where you're putting new oil again or top off the oil somehow. You don't want air bubbles in the line. You want just oil in that line. So you may have to bring it in somewhere to do it, unless you know how to do a bleeding of the line. But in general, hydraulic brakes used to cost a lot of money. Wouldn't doubt you pay about $200 or more for the hydraulic brake. Nowadays, a lot of even the entry-level bikes are offering hydraulic brakes. Like this one here comes with hydraulic brakes, but it's an unbranded hydraulic brake. We don't know who manufactures this. Whereas, let's turn right here. Whereas some companies will use better hydraulic brakes, like made from Tektro or other brands. You pay a little bit more for those. They have better quality brakes, right? In my opinion, if you can afford to get the hydraulic brakes. To stop this bike is a very smooth and easy pull of the brakes. A mechanical disc brake, you have to pull harder, and in time you have to readjust the brake line. So it's a wire that you're pulling. Just think about your old regular non-electric bikes. You know, you had a cable, right? You always have to readjust the cable because it's loosening up and all that. You don't have that issue with hydraulic brakes. If you can, try to find a bike with the hydraulic brakes. Not all of them come this way, but many of them do nowadays. All right. Now let's talk about saddles, the seat. More than likely they're going to change out the seat. Most people do. Most of the people hate the fact that the saddle that came with their bike it doesn't fit them, or they don't like the feel of it. Oh well, you know, I think these companies purposely give you lousy saddles because everyone keeps swapping them over. Why pay for an expensive saddle, put it on the bike, when the guy's just going to change it out anyway? He's going to raise the retail price of the bike. Let's try to keeping it down. It's important because that'll get their bike sold, so they give you a cheap saddle. Just plan that you're probably going to have to buy a better saddle, okay? Some saddles are okay. The one I'm sitting on, not too bad. Yeah. So even on an inexpensive bike, this one's not bad. It's not the greatest, I will say, but it's not bad. So check out to see what kind of saddle comes with it. But plan on getting a new one. All right. Saddles can cost you anywhere from let's say $25 on up to $70, $75, something like that, depending on what kind you want. Take a look at the display screen. Okay, different display screens have different information on it. Most of them do pretty well now. Some display screens you can't see too well when you have polarized sunglasses. I have polarized sunglasses. They're prescription glasses, so I can't just swap out sunglasses because it's my prescription, right? So there's a little trick that we do for those that have a problem seeing the display screen when they have a polarized sunglasses on. If you get some clear packing tape, all right, like the stuff that you put when you seal up a box to ship a box out, clear packing tape put on a diagonal, and you move it around, you'll actually see, if you put that tape over the display screen, you might actually be able to see the display screen again. You know, a lot of these display screens come with like a plastic film over the top that you can remove. I suggest not removing it. Yeah, because a lot of those will actually cut out that glare, and then you can see with polarized sunglasses. Not all of them, but test it first. Put on some sunglasses with that on, and then if you want to peel it back a little bit, see if you can see underneath it when you peeled it back. If you can't see it, put that thing back on. Don't peel it totally off, or you may not be able to line it back up. And if you peel it off a little bit, you might get some ear bubbles. So it's up to you. I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I don't peel them off. I just kind of leave them at this point. A lot of my bikes get sewed off down the road anyway, so I don't really want to scratch up the screens and the like. So what else should you look at? Motor sizes. Okay, now we talked about hub motors and we talked about mid-drive motors. Let's talk about hub motors again. There's different types of motors. Now the legal limit for a motor is supposed to be 750 watts. Okay, some of the bikes out there that are less expensive might be 250, 500, 300, okay, 750. Some more. Some go to 1,000, 2,000. The legal limit is 750 in the United States. Not so in other areas of the world. I think the UK has a limitation of, what is theirs, 250? I have no idea. Guys in the UK, weigh in, let us know what your legal limit is. I know it's a lot less. And in Canada, the legal limit is what, 500? The US, 750. But that doesn't mean you can't get a bigger motor, because people do sell them. Yeah. Now, the motors sometimes will have a nominal setting of a 750, meaning they call it 750. But if you push that thing harder, it'll go temporarily peak out higher. So they may say it's a 750 watt motor that peaks at 1200. All right, so obviously that means, I can hear the cicadas. Obviously that means that that motor can do like 1200 watts. Now you might think, well, that's good. Well, good and not so good. Good in the sense that maybe you can get a little more speed out of the thing. We'll talk about speeds in a minute. But it also means, too, that legally you're going past what the legal limit is in the United States. Legal limit is 750. Will you get in trouble if you get a bike like that? I don't know. Some people might. Some people might not. Hard to say. How are your bikes, Russ? Some of them go to 750. Others go higher. So, yeah. There's different bikes have different settings. Now, if the wattage is lower, that means you're using up less battery power. What does that mean? That means you can go farther. You might not go as fast, but you can go farther because you're not using as much power. If you're not using as much power up, your battery is going to give you more length of time of use, let's say, which means your distance might be increased. Now, let's look at batteries real quick too. Most of these batteries, of course, are lithium-ion batteries. And we've heard in the past of, bikes catching fire from the battery and everything. I think a lot of that happens too when people were charging their batteries. And a lot of those batteries, I think, too, are batteries that were not the best batteries. This is why, when people ask me, why don't you have some less expensive bikes, Russ? Why don't you review those bikes? I don't trust the batteries. Yeah, a lot of those less expensive bikes, sometimes, I don't know what kind of batteries there are. I mean, if you think about these more expensive bikes, some of these battery packs, the batteries themselves are $500 to $700. Think about that. If your whole bike is $500 to $700, what kind of batteries are they putting into this thing, right? It could be cheaper batteries. Those might be the ones you have to be fearful of. Now, people have said, well, it doesn't seem to be the case for me. Mine's is perfectly fine. Well, so far, but you never know, right? Some of the batteries too now are being UL listed, where the company will send the battery to underwriter laboratories, and they will test the battery. They got to pay for that, all right? It costs money to go through the testing, and then if UL approves it, they're basically saying, okay, this is probably a safe battery. Well, that also means that bike could cost a little bit more money because they paid a lot of money for the testing. Some of the bikes too have UL approval for the whole electrical system in the bike itself, not just the battery. So if a bike has the UL approval, that's a good thing, right? But not all bikes have it, and that doesn't mean that if it doesn't have the UL approval, it's a bad bike. It's just that they never did it. And still, they're fine. I mean, I would say the vast majority of the bikes that I have are not UL-approved batteries from the companies. Some of them are, many of them aren't. So just kind of keep in mind that if it has UL approval, it doesn't mean that the bike is good either, all right? It just means that it went through the testing, and it's passed the testing. Because there's other things too. There's performance of the bike. Let's talk about that. There's different classes of bikes. There's a Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 rating here in the United States. All right. Class 1 rating basically means your bike has a motor, and then when you're pedaling, it'll assist you up to 20 miles per hour. Once you go past 20 miles per hour, the motor will basically shut down and not assist any further. And then any additional speed you get is on your own accord, meaning the more harder you pedal, you might go faster, but the motor's not helping at all. It's basically stopped helping you. Then there's a thing called Class 2. Class 2 is the same thing, where the motor helps you to 20 miles per hour, and then it doesn't help any further, but it also has a throttle. And you see here I have a half-twist throttle here. I put a little attachment, and let's see if you guys can see that. It's right over here. Put this little 3D printed thumb throttle attachment on it. I like using that over just twisting it. It's personal preference. But Class 2 has a throttle that'll throttle to 20 miles per hour, and then it won't throttle anything further. And then you can pedal to 20 miles an hour. That's Class 2. Class 3, by the letter of the law, has a motor that will assist you to 28 miles an hour if you pedal, but it has no throttle. All right. Now you'll see bikes too that say they're Class 3, but technically they're skating law because it has a throttle as well. And some of those throttles will throttle to 28. Some of the throttles will throttle to 20. So many of the bikes that call themselves Class 3 will say, well, we're Class 3. We have a 20 mile per hour throttle and a 28 mile per hour pedaling. If you go by the law, I guess technically that's still not a Class 3. Now earlier bikes that came out, they used to say that is Class 3. Now they're cutting down on it and saying you have to have no throttle at all to be considered Class 3. A motor that helps to 28 miles per hour, but only if you pedal. All right. It's hard to say. Now, we'll go one further. There are bikes that go beyond 28 miles per hour. All right. I have one coming in. If you unlock the bike, meaning if you go into the electronics and you tell it, okay, stop limiting me. Don't limit me to 28 miles per hour. Give me everything you got. That bike can go up to 41 miles per hour. Now, the way they get around that is they tell you if you unlock it, you're on your own, all right? Liability is all on you because you unlocked the bike. But the bike has the ability to do it, okay? It's got a big motor, too. It's past the 750 watt motor. So you can get them, but they don't take any legal liability if you do it. A lot of companies are doing that now. So, is that legal to do? Well, technically no. Do people do it? Yes. A lot of people do. All right, what else? Let's talk about belt drive. There are some bikes that have belt drive instead of a chain drive. Those are really quiet. Okay, the Magicycle commuter bike is a belt-driven bike. All right, it's got a smaller motor. I can't remember what's in there. 350 watt, something like that. It's a class 1 bike, meaning there's no throttle on there. You have to pedal it. No, I take that back. No. Does that have a throttle? I can't recall anymore. It's been a while. There might be a throttle on that one. Oh, I'll check it. But that one has a belt drive. That is super quiet. You know, there's no chain. There's no derailleur. It's a single speed bike. Okay, now you do have things called pedal assists. That's over here on this left hand side for this bike. You'll see there's a plus and a minus button. Pedal assist basically means this: when you're pedaling the bike, the motor is going to assist you. If you have a pedal assist at level 1, maybe the motor will help you up to, let's say, 10 miles an hour. If you want the motor to help you more, go to pedal assist level 2. Maybe that gives you 12 or 13 miles an hour. You see what I'm saying? And then level 3, maybe that goes to 15 miles an hour. I don't know. I'm just guessing, okay? The whole point is that the pedal assist, as you're pedaling the bike, the motor helps you. You're just telling it how much help you want. Some of them will go from 1 to 5. Some of them 0 to 5, meaning 0 means there's no motor. It's just like a regular bike. 1 to 5, 5 being the highest assist level. And if it's a class 2 bike, maybe that assist will go to 20 miles per hour then, okay? Because if it's a class 3 style bike with pedaling that goes to 28 miles per hour, then maybe that level 5 is 28 miles per hour. So you can change it here to do that for you. You can change it on the pedal assist levels, this PAS, okay? And you can change the PAS levels. Some of them have 5 levels, some of them have 7, some of them have 9. And in the menu of the bikes, some of these bikes allow you to make those modifications. Okay. Let's talk about torque sensors and cadence sensor bikes, you know, for the hub motors. Most bikes are cadence sensor bikes, although nowadays you're finding a lot of even the entry-level bikes might be torque sensor bikes. Cadence sensor bikes basically mean this: when I'm pedaling, okay, if my PAS level is on, say, 4 or 5 or whatever it happens to be, all I have to do is move the pedals. And if, let's say I'm on pedal assist level 5 and it happens to be a cadence sensor bike, I believe this one's a torque sensor, I can feel it. That means that all I have to do is move the pedals. If I move the pedals, even slowly moving the pedals, it's going to give me the speed of what pedal assist level 5 gives me. So I can get 20 miles per hour and barely move my legs, okay? A torque sensor bike is different. The harder you push on the pedals, the bike reacts accordingly. So it's kind of like a standard non-electric bike, in the sense that if you want to go faster, you better pedal harder. And as you pedal harder, the motor reacts and gives you more. So the motor only gives you more as you pedal more and harder. All right, so it feels more like a regular non-electric bike, but you have motors that help you. A lot of people like that because they feel like, well, I feel like I'm actually riding a real bike. I'm not riding something that means I'm not really getting that much sensation out of it. So if you're one that really wants to exercise and you really want to just like work it, get a torque sensor bike, all right? If you're one like me who had a knee replacement, or you have a hip replacement or something, that your leg is not that strong, you know, you can't pedal all that much, you know, long distances, then you're probably going to want something like like a torque sensor bike. All right. I can see my battery's starting to die out here. I didn't charge this bike before I took it out. I just took it because I knew I was just going to ride around and talk a little bit. All right, is there anything else that we need to discuss? There's other things too on these bikes, you know, that adds to the cost of the things. You know, like this one has rubber grips. Some of them have fake leather type grips. Some of them have non-spinning grips that if you hold the hand grip too long, sometimes these things kind of spin along on you. Some of them have little locking mechanism. These are just convenience features. They're not really performance features as far as the bike is concerned. Most of them do not come with a side view mirror. I would suggest you buy a side view mirror so that you can see behind you. It does help a lot. I put it on every bike. They don't give you that kind of stuff. Some of them have cheap bells. You might want to change the bell. Again, it's not really a performance thing as far as the bike is concerned, but it's nice to have. All right, did I miss anything? I think I covered most of the main things. All right, I'm down to 1 bar on my battery at this point. I think I'm gonna need to head back just to make sure I make it back. Anyways, if you liked what you heard, go ahead and hit the like button. Hit the share button, share it with somebody. If you know someone looking for an e-bike, this might be a good video to share with them because I kind of covered a lot of the stuff they should be looking at, okay? Pricing structures, okay, that's one thing we didn't talk about. Let's talk about that real quickly and then I'll try to head back. Don't go too low in pricing. I would say most decent bikes, try to look for at least $1,000 and higher. Yeah, anything less than that, you're gonna have issues. All right, this guy's gonna let me go. This is the thing. Most of these guys prefer that we go rather than them, even though they have the right of way. Try to go 1,000 or more, because you're not gonna get a lot of the features that we talked about if it's too low. And if you get it, it's probably gonna be rather inexpensively made. Try to stick with brands that are proven and tested. I've done my best to try to find bikes that are decent and have something to offer. I don't usually review the very inexpensive bikes, so that's why you don't really see it from me. I want to make sure the bikes are safe. I want to make sure that the bikes have something to offer that's a little different. But it doesn't mean that the inexpensive bikes aren't out there. I've had several that have come my way. If you're talking this brand, Engwe, E-N-G-W-E, the Engwe EP2 Pro, which is a folding bike, really good bike for the money. I think even with the discounts, I think they're down to, I've seen them as low as like $899 now. I mean, I think they used to be $1,050, $1,100, something like that. So sometimes these bikes do go on sale. Check the Engwe site. It's a folding bike, which means the bike will fold in half for storage, and it's good for transport too, because these bikes being so big, you're going to need like an e-bike rack for your car. You can't use a standard bike rack to transport bikes that are this heavy. But a folding bike, you can fold and put in an SUV. Yeah, it's heavy, but you can do it. We have a couple folding bikes that we use all the time. It's made by Magicycle. It's called the Jaguar Rundy. You can check that out. It costs a little bit more money, but it's also a better bike. My wife and I use that all the time. Whenever we go someplace that's a distance, we'll throw that on the bike rack, and sometimes we'll just throw it inside the car, and we'll go riding with that in different places. But these big bikes, wow, they're heavy, they're big. Sometimes it's a hard thing to do. So, but yeah, the Engwe was a good one for the money. We had one called the KBO Flip. Not as powerful. Yeah, not as powerful as the Jaguar Rundy, but it is cheaper. I've seen that as low as like $750, something like that. It's a folding bike as well. Between the two, I'd rather see you get something like the Engwe or get something like the Magicycle, but they cost a little bit more, right? Oh, real quickly, batteries. Okay, there's 48 volt batteries, 52 volt batteries, and more. Most bikes are 48 volts. Some of the cheaper bikes are even down to 36 volts, and the reason is because their motors don't require anything bigger. But that kind of tells you too what performance you can kind of see. When it's too low, you don't really want to do that either. So be careful of that. Most of the decent bikes are at least 48 volts, and then there's a rating called the amp hours. That tells you how far you can go. All right, it has more cells in there. So that means that you have more battery cells inside the casing, and that gives you the ability to go farther because you got more cells to keep you going. Most of the bikes today are around at least 14 or 15 amp hours. Some of them are like 10.5. So if it says 48 volt 10.5 versus 48 volt 15 amp hour, 15 amp hour one, you can go farther. It won't die out on you as fast, all right? But the 10.5 amp hour version, that's gonna die out on you a lot quicker. So you wanna get something that has a little bit of range. I mean, unless you plan to doing what I'm doing now, I'm just kind of going around in circles in various neighborhoods. But if you want to go some distance, get a battery that's at least like a 48 volt, 14 or 15 amp hour. Some of the bigger bikes with the bigger batteries, you'll see the down tubes are really big because they have to hold that battery in there somehow. Those will be like 20 amp hours. There are other ones too that have dual batteries, but again, we're talking more expensive things. It's probably not an entry-level type of thing. So yeah, I would say look for at least a 48 volt, 14 amp hour battery bike. I think anything less than that, you're probably going to say, oh, I could only ride 8 miles or 10 miles. I'm just guessing at this point. But you're going to say, I can't go that much farther than that? You know? Now you might think, well, I'm never going to go that far. Well, you know what? Since we've been riding this bike, we've already gone 10.7 miles. So you would have already run out of battery power probably by now had you had the smaller battery. All right, I think that's about it. I need to start riding to where I live. Not in this area, we have to go a distance. Hey, anyways, again, if you like this video, like and share this video with somebody. All right, put it on your Facebook pages, whatever. Get the word out. Hit the subscribe button if you like. If you like what I did and you want to hear and see more videos from me, hit the share, hit the like and the subscribe button. That always helps out. Good luck to you guys. Hope you guys find a good bike for yourselves. Talk to you guys next time.